Hello guys, and welcome again to another interesting episode of Viva Barca, the home of everything Barca, and indeed the home of every Barcelona lover. Guys, in this special episode we are going to be doing a tactical preview of the El Clasico 2021 due to take place on Saturday the 10th of April 2021. So guys, stay tuned and please click on that subscribe button as we progress and to always receive updates, and don't forget to turn on the notification. Barca! So welcome again guys. So as I said earlier, we're going to be doing an in-depth tactical preview of that game, what awaits the El Clasico that comes in a few days time. We as Barcelona fans, we should be able to know how we should operate. Now, given the fact that Koeman have been changing our system of late, and of course the results are coming our way recently, and of course the El Clasico is not something that we can easily predict. So it's very important we take our time as Barcelona fans to really go through this tactical preview and see what to expect from our boss Koeman. Of course, this video will really consist first of all heavily the last Clasico that took place at the Camp Nou back in October 24th, where Real Madrid won that 3-1. We are going to be take much of our time to do the tactical analysis of that last El Clasico and see what Ronald Koeman needs to correct in order to win this Clasico. So it's very important we see our last Clasico first of all, then we'll jump inside and see the system that and the predicted lineups that Koeman might go, or the system that Koeman might prefer in this upcoming Clasico. So guys, let's start with the Clasico that took place in 2020 October and see the errors that we made before losing by 3-1 at the hands of Real Madrid. And we remember in that tie back in October, it was the first Clasico in 17 years in which both sides went into the clash having lost their last league game. Defeat to Cadiz had been compounded for Real Madrid as they were beaten by Shakhtar Donetsk, meaning that crisis talk was all over the place as they traveled to face Barcelona side who have spent months in turmoil, capped by defeat to Getafe a week before meeting their arch rivals. It was Real Madrid who got off to the perfect start as Valverde opened the scoring with Ansu Fati hitting back immediately in a far more open and explosive beginning to the game than expected. A penalty scored by Sergio Ramos and a third added by Luka Modric sealed the victory. So as I said, we're going to be doing a tactical analysis of that last Clasico because this analysis will look at the tactics of Koeman, Barcelona and the Zidane's Real Madrid. The analysis will highlight the key factors that led to the victory for the visitors, giving them a clear advantage over their Laliga counterparts in the race for the title. As you can see, Koeman made gambles with his team selection as consistent, if not spectacular. Performers like Sergio Roberto and Antoine Griezmann were dropped, with Jordi Alba coming back into the side after an injury layoff and Sergio Dest getting his first start in his preferred right-back role since joining from Ajax. Neto kept his place in goal, with Gerard Piqué and Clement Lenglet selected in defense. In midfield, the shape altered between a 4-2-3-1, as seen so far this season by Den, and a 4-4-2, which allowed greater freedom to Ansu Fati to run in behind while Lionel Messi dropped deeper. This system didn't suit Messi greatly, as will be covered later, with Felipe Coutinho and Pedri drifting into central areas ahead of Sergio Busquets and Frankie de Jong. The headline, however, remained the selection of two 17-year-olds for the El Clasico for the first time since 1947. Real Madrid, on the other hand, stuck to what Zidane knows. Thibaut Courtois in goal had demanded defensive solidity before the game, and so it came on as excellent news, that Captain Sergio Ramos was fit. Having been forced off against Cadiz and missed the defeat to Shakhtar Donetsk, he played alongside Rafael Varane in the middle, with Ferland Mendy's defensive consistency preferred to Marcelo on the left, and with Nacho filling in for the injured Dani Carvajal on the right. In midfield, Valverde's energy gave him the nod alongside Toni Kroos and Casemiro ahead of Modric, which the recent first Clasico front three of Vinicius Jr., Marco Asensio and Karim Benzema keeping their places in a shape which resembled 4-3-3 in possession and 4-1-4-1 out of it. So in the earlier stages of that encounter, we were dominated by the way in which the game bypassed the midfield, with defensive frailties not on show, as will be highlighted later. Quick transitions and long balls would see the two midfields almost taken out of the equation for the first 10 minutes. Then keen to stabilize the pace down, as evidenced by the 19.8% reduction in the total number of passes made in the second 15 minutes of the tie compared to the first 15 minutes, and this meant we saw the midfield come more and more into the tie, switching Real Madrid down to the ground. Now, let me see if you can see that image below. Real Madrid's narrow midfield prevented Barcelona's midfield from progressing. As you can see there, the first way that Real Madrid looked to do this was by having a narrow midfield three, which will effectively look to block out the central Barcelona trio of De Jong, Busquets and Fati, or Coutinho in the central role. Casemiro would take the more offensive man, with Kroos and Valverde picking up the other two players. This left Vinicius and Asensio to pick up the slack of the wingers, providing cover for Nacho or Lucas Vazquez and Mendy. This enabled Real Madrid, to form deep defensive blocks in the two lines, but keep pressing Barcelona, to stop them from advancing. Not since the Champions League defeat to Manchester City had a greater percentage of recoveries been made in the low block than 54.5%, but that fed into Real Madrid's approach, allowing Barcelona to hold possession until they broke into the final third. This structure also extended to when Barcelona did push forward in numbers. Casemiro would drop into the central defense, particularly with Ramos stepping up to press, and Kroos or Valverde would still replicate the same role of pressing slightly higher in order to press and cancel out the move before it could progress. The deep positioning of Vinicius and Asensio meant that Barcelona simply could not find a way through, and despite dominating possession, peaking at 63% in the early stages of the second half. Now let's see that image that I am just putting there. At that image you can see Casemiro would drop, into the back line with the wingers to add strength to the defense. On the ball, Real Madrid were able to use this to suit them. One-on-one in midfield positions, and with Casemiro free of too much pressure, they could play out and around the midfield trio quickly. By bypassing Busquets and De Jong, Real Madrid were able to join Napoli and Bayern Munich in becoming the third team to beat Barcelona for possession in 2020. They effectively moved the ball into wide areas, where a rapid counter transition could be managed, or the ball would be returned into a central role where the midfield could again dictate play. Now let's just discuss briefly on Real Madrid's early defensive woes. Now this midfield domination was essential and necessary to Zidane's reaction. It came as a result of the opening minutes and much of the first half, where Nacho in particular looked vulnerable. This reflected how Real Madrid initially struggled to handle the pace and energy of Barcelona, particularly in wide areas. Koeman was clearly looking to focus upon Nacho on the right of the Real Madrid defense, much like Cadiz had only a week before, with 45.9% of positional attacks coming down the left flank. Jordi Alba led the way here, pushing at pace, while Coutinho, Fati or Pedri would look to force Nacho or a midfielder to step up. De Jong was particularly effective at this, holding position deep, inviting Nacho, to step up. So once he did, Jordi Alba would burst down the left, and Fati would be monitoring closely in order to explode into a burst of pace. Early on, this caught Real Madrid out, particularly Ramos, who struggled to turn at pace and keep up with the 17-year-old. This meant that Jordi Alba could do what he does best, attacking at pace, then cutting back from the byline, setting up Fati to tap in the back of the net, having left Ramos and even Varane at dead. Now, if you look at that image, you see Nacho would step up to press, but that would allow Jordi Alba in behind, and Ansu Fati would react quickest in the middle. And this other image, you see how De Jong saw Jordi Alba's run, with Fati reacting faster than Sergio Ramos. This was indicative of how Barcelona looked to exploit Nacho and his role on the right of the Real Madrid defense. With Ramos unable to cope with Fati's pace, the side immediately resorted to playing with a deeper defensive line in order to limit the potential for the youngster to attack at pace through the middle. Attacks still came down the flank, but were not quite as clinical, as Fati found himself running into a brick wall of defenders rather than into space to convert an easy chance. Now, another key turning point in the tie was the introduction of Vazquez. Defensively, he has never been the most reliable of options, acting more as a wing-back than a full-back, but against Barcelona, he showed great discipline. He held his position remarkably well and engaged in 9 defensive duels, only surpassed by Kroos and Casemiro. Despite not playing the majority of the first half, what's even more impressive was that only Ramos and Varane won a higher percentage than his 56% success rate. Now, if you take a look at that image, guys, you can see Real Madrid overloaded the right in order to reduce space, Beyond simply introducing Vazquez, Zidane also altered his team's approach. The team also looked to defensively overload their right-hand side whenever Barcelona looked to switch possession to the left, with support from Valverde and Asensio, often helped by further support from the attack. They would look to stop attacks from progressing beyond Barcelona's deep midfielders. It denied space to Jordi Alba, who would look to run into the gaps left in behind and slow down Barcelona's transition significantly. That frustrated Barcelona, forcing them into slowing transitions and switching the ball across to the right. However, to discuss only the structure of Real Madrid in which Vasquez formed a part would be to do him a disservice. Despite his lack of experience at right back, accounting for just 893 minutes or 0.07% of his game time in that position since he joined Real Madrid in 2015, he reacted well when Barcelona did find space on their left, with space opening up as Asensio tired and tracked backless. He would occasionally step up before reversing back, as in this example above, identifying the space he would be leaving in behind for Coutinho or Jordi Alba. He would revert to sitting back deep and allow one of the dropping midfielders to handle the pressing Barcelona rival coming from midfield. Now let's look at Barcelona's struggles at the back. Ironically, many of the issues that Barcelona looked to cause Real Madrid were also evident in their own defense. With Alba pressing high to look to counter on the attack, or even just pressing high as he likes to, with his high pressing approach, spaces would open up for Asensio and Benzema would look to attack. By doing so, Barcelona's defense would be dragged across, with Lenglet forced to cover and Piqué being forced across to pick up Benzema. With Des preoccupied covering Vinicius and his space down the flank, it meant that spaces were opening up in central areas. Real Madrid looked to transition quickly, just as Barcelona did. In these early stages, that was easy, as neither De Jong nor Busquets could match the pace of Valverde's central run. This meant that as Asensio pulled Lenglet wide and Piqué picked up Benzema, there was a space in the midfield for Valverde, to run, into which Busquets would not be able to follow him into, with two simple passes from Nacho to Benzema and then from Benzema through the middle to Valverde's pass. Real Madrid had gone from their own defensive third to a one-on-one situation against Neto. So look at that image there. That image you see Jordi Alba stepping up, open up big space, large space behind. And if you see the second image there, guys, Asensio's wide run dragged Barcelona's defense across, opening up space for Valverde's run from deep. These spaces continue to open up throughout the tie. Real Madrid did not capitalize as much on them until late on when Rodrigo goes as introduced. As they look to slow down the pace of the game and dominate through possession, or only allowing Barcelona to have non-dangerous possession. Spaces continue to open up, with Valverde continuing to exploit, but he would become more conservative, preferring to form part of the defensive structure or avoid risk than to gamble onto a breakthrough in Barcelona's shape. Now let's take a close look at Pedri's and Messi's anonymity in that game, guys. As has already been discussed, much of Barcelona's threat came down the left. However, very little of it came through Pedri. Jordi Alba required space to run down the flank from the left, forcing Pedri to drift further infield and cut inside into a position that he is less comfortable with. Such a role would have been more naturally suited to Griezmann, yet he only got a late run out against a team who, by that stage of the game, were sitting very deep and behind him any space to move into. As Real Madrid, built a structure, it only served to further silence him, touching the ball in the box on just 2 occasions. Barcelona became keener to keep the left flank as clear as possible for Jordi Alba to exploit any space that could open up. That left Pedri in a dead area of the field, as reflected in that image below. Receiving the ball and given the difficult task of beating Vinicius for pace while Cruz supported him, he would not have found space to return or to run into, even if he had, given how close together the Real Madrid lines were, with Messi and Fati also floating in the space between the two lines. As you see in that image, guys, Real Madrid would sit into deep structured lines and Pedro would be on the right, in a congested area. Then this was also partly behind the role of Messi. Quieter than ever, he registered 0 expected assists, only for the 5th time in 2020, and just 0.43 xG, his lowest figure in 5 games. Without space to operate in between the lines, Real Madrid silenced him effectively, just as they did Pedri, with Pedri drifting to the right and Coutinho doing the same. It only serves to add to the congestion and make Messi's most natural areas even more rigid. No longer able to engage in the high-speed counters and transitions as naturally as he once was, that role now falls to Fati. And in this case, Messi was denied the space to influence play as a playmaker. So what can we conclude, guys? This was a back to basics approach from Zidane. While Koeman gambled that gamble backfired. Real Madrid were confident and committed in their approach, while Barcelona looked lost at times, struggling to create space in the right areas and becoming predictable with their constant preference to go down the left on quick counters, or down the right when looking to break play down. As such, Real Madrid had an easy task to defend against Barcelona. On the counter, they found it easy to create space and open up the Barcelona defense. Busquets' lack of mobility and pace meant that the defense was so exposed, with midfield runners and wingers able to generate space for others to run into. What effectively decided the tie, was the reaction of each coach. Yes, as can be seen in this analysis, Zidane learned from Real Madrid's early mistakes, dropping his defense into a deeper line and overloading the right by bringing in Vasquez. Even after that, he identified the lack of space opening up and a tiring Barcelona defense, so brought on Rodrigo to attack those at the team earlier, with Modric making Valverde's runs. That's exactly how the third goal came about. On the contrary, Koeman did not make a change until the 82nd minute. By the end, Real Madrid had made 3 and were leading. Those changes were simply too little too late, and did absolutely nothing to correct the issues with Barcelona's system. So guys, as you can see from that analysis of the last Clasico, there have been many drastic changes. The team have changed a lot. I think you can argue with me that Ronald Koeman has now found the best team, the system of the team that works best for Barcelona, and his management for the team. So guys, the many errors that were there in that last Clasico, as you have seen in my tactical analysis show, needs to be corrected. There are many errors, especially from the back, that needs to be corrected. And of course, our team is getting better and better every day, as we can see. Improved performances, but not against Valladolid. The game against Valladolid was not the best, especially in the first half. But I just believe that Koeman can do something. The team have changed a lot. So guys, thanks a lot for watching, and please don't forget to click on that subscribe button to always stay updated with everything Barca.